This expedition is not about us transecting the continent. It's not about a test of our physical endeavor or endurance. It's actually a conservation story.
Dr. Ian McCallum and Ian Mickler, well-known conservationists and authors, together with their team, have recently completed an epic 4-month journey across the ancient African elephant migration corridors on foot, bicycle and kayak, crossing 6 different countries and 8 major conservation nodes. Their purpose? To create greater awareness of the importance of corridor and transfrontier park conservation.
I think we have to get away from the notion that animals have their place and human beings have their place. One of the great objectives for me is to be able to show during this particular expedition that there are people who for centuries have lived at that interface and have lived at that interface successfully.
Through their expedition, they see at ground level how these ancient migratory paths, created originally by the tracks of giants, the elephants, are rapidly disappearing as human settlements encroach on these areas.
They need these connected landscapes over which to move. They have no regard for political boundaries. These animals move passport-free across 4 international boundaries in 1 year.
On their journey, they also met the conservation giants, people from the various countries that they crossed who are working towards making transfrontier and corridor conservation areas possible.
Corridor conservation and transfrontier conservation is quite possibly the last throw of the dice we have so that we can relink wilderness areas that still exist.
Wilderness areas are the key to sustainable conservation practice, and Kaza is a working example of how traditional leaders, communities, governments, NGOs and private operators are all working in cooperation.
The idea of Kaza is to create a dedicated area to conservation. Kaza area is home to a population of over 250,000 elephants. This project involves 5 different countries. We have to get the governments to move together, to work together.
This is not just about wild animals. This is also about people. And it is critical that we review that relationship.
Conservation now is not about how clever you are managing rhino or managing parks. It's really about how to get buy-in from the neighbors of parks, forests, protected areas.
Conservation is love. Not only love of the animal, but you love people as well.
But what happens when the wildlife encroach on their livelihood and the humans encroach on the wildlife's natural migratory routes?
Contradictory to what most people will think, this elephant bull wasn't shot because of the ivory that he was carrying or for his tusks, but because of human-elephant conflict. All too often, people are encroaching on vital corridors that elephants need to access water. And so people were either afraid or intimidated by the presence of this large bull here, and they chose to shoot him and to destroy him.
And what about the original people of these areas, who are still able to live in harmony with nature? The 2 Ians rekindled some of this ancient wisdom that comes from these indigenous people when they met the San and the Himba, connecting with some of the conservation giants who are working alongside them.
The Himba, the San, see themselves as part of nature, not dominating it. And that is critical, and I think with what's happening in the world, we're going to have to go back to that place too, where we see ourselves just as part of the whole, rather than some, clever technical being who can manipulate nature.
When I ask people about their fears, for example, of the future and their fears of people coming onto this land, often what comes up is their fear that the resources are going to be overutilized. And they frequently say things like, what's going to be left for our children?
Through their efforts, Namibia's transfrontier conservation giants are a great example of what is possible.
Tot dusver is Namibië 'n ware suksesverhaal in gemeenskapsgesinde bewaring, waar baanbreker natuurbewaarders maniere gevind het waar die gemeenskappe kan voordeel trek uit die natuurskoon en die wilde diere van hierdie area.
Die gemeenskap self met hierdie wilde diere wat hulle nou oppas, hulle kry benefits, hulle kry bietjie iets wat hulle gebruik om vir hulle se watergates te bou of skole te help, iets in die gemeenskap as hulle wil wat doen. Kyk, met hierdie bietjie wat hulle van die diere afbreek, het help hulle hierso.
As jy nou daai regte teruggee aan die plaaslike bevolking, soos ons hierso in Namibië gedoen het, het ons gesien dat die mense se sienswyse oor die wild het heeltemal verander. Nou beskou hulle die wild as hulle eie eiendom.
Njengakithi le South Africa la ngiqhamuka khona kufanele ukuthi sikwazi nathi ukuphilisana nemvelo ngoba siyingxenye yemvelo nabantu baphila abala eNamibia baphila ngaphansi kokuthi imvelo iphila kanjani nabantu bayingxenye yayo nokuthi bayimvelo kwabona mayingekho imvelo bakwazi ukuphila.
Conserving corridors not only benefits the free movement of elephants, it also allows for species diversity and for natural ecosystems to thrive, and that's what attracts tourism.
We've now moved into an area which is an ecotourism concession, and within the last hour already we've seen zebra, warthog, impala, baboons, waterbuck, and all of those have been relaxed. The hunting concession that was here, the hunters were moved out 4 or 5 years ago, and there'd be no communities in this area. These ecotourism lodges providing a safe haven for wild animals to come down.
Mozambique was the penultimate country that they crossed, and it was here that their eyes were opened to a very real threat to wildlife, marine life, landscapes, and transfrontier conservation in the area.
We crossed from Mozambique into South Africa. This is one of the great corridors, and I think we must protect it with everything we have.
The biggest threat that this transfrontier park faces today is the prospect of a new deep water port in Teco Benin. The port is planned to utilize an area of more than 30,000 hectares.
The actual entry for the port itself is here to the east, where they're planning to reach the dune system, and the ships would literally come in here and be loaded in this hollowed out area.
There are not many places in the world where you have that combination of elephants on one side and whales on the other side. If they started, it will be one of the biggest ecological disasters along our east coast, which will affect Mozambique and South Africa.
This would be an absolute travesty to both the marine and transfrontier parks. We shall be keeping a close eye on developments, but
ultimately, a statement to the world that there are some places which are just not for sale. It's a massive statement.
Wildlife, nature conservation, this is our real gift. This is ours.
Thank you, thank you. Well, Ian Mickler, please stand up. Ian, is it? And I would like somebody else to stand up, please, with the lady behind him. That's my wife, Sharon. Without her, we would still be in Western Mozambique today. Sharon. He's the project manager. Great to have Garth, Owen Smith, Margie Jacobson with us. But I'd also like to say thank you to the Wilderness Foundation through Andrew Muir and Werner. Great to have you here, and we would not have done what we completed without the help of the Peace Parks Foundation. Why elephants? Well, the reason why we chose elephants is for two reasons. One is that if we cannot understand or protect the significance of something this big, how on earth do we protect or understand the significance, the ecological significance of the smaller things? And the second was to introduce the notion of a keystone species, where elephants, certainly in Africa, are a keystone species, an architectural term for that wedge-shaped stone which holds an arch together, that is integral to the whole of that arch, of that particular structure, and how elephants are integral to the well-being and livelihoods of other creatures. For example, an elephant, wherever it walks, that pathway becomes inevitably a pathway to water because they are water dependent. When an elephant walks, that pathway over many, many years becomes a fire break. When an elephant eats, The process between trees and grasses is set in motion, which goes way beyond human lifetimes. So we learn how to change our vocabulary. Elephants have an impact on trees. They never, ever destroy trees. When an elephant eats, its droppings are 80% undigested food. The food for countless species of insects. The food for birds like hornbills, francolin, guinea fowl, let alone the seed eaters. During seasons of dryness, I can tell you that the moisture which is maintained in elephant droppings again becomes the sole moisture for countless insects. We understand that when you take elephants out of the equation, countless other species will suffer. And this is the definition of a keystone species. And here is the question. Are human beings a keystone species? Well, the answer is categorically no. If every single human being had to disappear off the face of this planet today, the Earth would breathe a sigh of relief. Believe it or not, there are only a handful of macroorganisms that would benefit or would miss us when we leave. Not to say a little about some of the microbes, but shrimps, for example, is one of them. And the reason why is, for example, the highest population of shrimps in the world comes off the coast of India. Why? Because they feed off human feces that come down off the rivers. So when we go, this earth will breathe a sigh of relief. And you know, I feel rather sad about that. Why? It's because I think there's something wrong. There's something wrong about that. And that is why I would like to introduce the notion of keystone individuals. If you're not a keystone species, what about the notion of keystone individuals? Individuals who understand that biodiversity, biocultural diversity, is not some aspect or sector of life, but a value system. Individuals who are prepared to be a voice for wild animals, for wild places, and in their own way, for the wild part of the human psyche. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Those keystone species are in this audience today. The WILD10, the WILD9, the WILD8 gatherings going right back to the beginning. Surely we have to acknowledge that in our own ways we have accepted the challenge of what it means to be keystone individuals. And a keystone individual is that individual whose life, because of you, has made a huge difference to the life not only of other people, but to the life of those who are intimately linked to our identity, the lives of insects, of birds, of mammals, of forests. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the existence of keystone individuals, because that, I believe, is our message when we go out to what we might regard as an uninformed public. Do you know that we are not a keystone species, but are there keystone individuals in the particular audiences which we address? It is a leadership challenge. And as a leadership challenge, I believe that in the way that I've written, the soul will demand this of you when you wake up to the deep interconnection which we have with nature. For one day, your soul will call to you with a holy rage. Rise up, it will say. Stand up inside your own skin. Unmask your unlived life. Feast on your animal heart. Unfasten your fist. Let loose the medicines from your own hand. Show me the lines. I will show you the spoor of the ancestors. Show me the creases. I will show you the way to water. Show me the folds, and I will show you the furrows for your healing. Look, your soul will say, the line of life has 4 paths. One with a mask, one with a mirror, one with a fist, and one with a heart. One day, your soul will call to you with a holy rage. The Trucks of Giants expedition has only just begun. Thank you.
Wow. It has been an honor for me to stand in front of you. And after Dr. Ian McCallum, I'm like, what can I say now? It's a pleasure. And I was honored to be part and parcel of the group that has been to Treks of Giant. So being a backup team there, for me, it was amazing. And I thank the Wilderness Foundation as well for the opportunities that they gave me to go and experience the Treks of Giant expedition. I've got just few messages. My message to you, all of us, it's only just a little. Dr. Ian McCallum is quite correct and totally right. The Treks of Giant is just begin. It's our task, and we believe to identify and to inspire human beings and grow or groom the future giants of conservation, not only in South Africa, but those young environmental leadership to come to our country from beyond to experience our classical wilderness trails. It has been great, and we invite, as a trail guide or as a trail young woman growing in South Africa, we are inviting the whole world to come and be with us or join us on our trail. Finally, I would like to thank the Treks of Giants, the audience that is in here, for the work that we all do in our communities where we're coming from. I thank you.